The opening prelude from the Well Tempered Clavier is one of these iconic pieces of music that most people will have heard at some point in their life, even if they don't have a particular interest for classical music as a whole. It holds a position somewhat similar to Beethoven Fureli's or Mozart alla Turca, and we'll try to see why it does this. On some level, it might seem surprising because it's an exceedingly simple piece of music. But then you might argue that so is Fureli's. And perhaps this is in fact part of its appeal. Now, there is a reason why this piece is in appearance so simple. I mean, you all know it. It is not made of much in appearance. It is what you would call a music of pure harmony. There is practically no rhythm to speak of because the evenness means there is no shape to the rhythm, if you want. And there is no melody, although, again, many people would know this piece in its form where the melody has been tagged onto the piece by Gounod. And that has been done very successfully. A piece of pure harmony can easily be, you can easily add a melody to it, and if the composer has a melodic flair, as did Gounod, then the result is going to be very nice. So, what is the reason for which Bach would have written such a piece of such elementary material? Well, this prelude has a certain number of the preludes in Book 1, not the fugues, are part of a collection which is called the Klavierbüchlein, the little book of keyboard work that Bach has written for his son Wilhelm Friedman Bach, who was just learning to play the clavier at the time. So those pieces were not composed specially for the Well Tempered Clavier. The Klavierbüchlein was composed in 1720, the Well Tempered is 1722. I will mention them as we go through them. So it is a piece for teaching material, again, as so many preludes in Book 1, and it explains in a large way why Book 1 is said to be less sophisticated than Book 2. And again, this is only true for the prelude and not for all of them. It did happen sometimes that between the version in the Klavierbüchlein and the final version in the Well Tempered, some big change have been made. This is not the case for this piece. It's practically the same piece with one or two minor details changed. But the shape and the overall thing is. Now, as teaching material, this piece is actually pretty perfect because it is simple to play. You have position that you keep. So if you are a beginner and you have just a little bit of skill and a bit of patience, you can memorize the position and play something which will sound much nicer than pretty much anything else you can do on the piano. So this is part of the appeal of the piece. This is a genre of prelude based on a formula which is repeated in different harmonies that Bach has absolutely not invented. He just has brought it to this status where we feel he has composed the perfect piece in that particular genre, which is something he has done in many genres that he touched. Again, you can find similar works in different composers, but also he has done the same thing in his first cello suite, for example. this is practically a transposition on the cello of this piece. The pattern is different, the harmony are nearly the same. It is a twin sister. This piece leaves us professional interpreters with a sort of a problem, is what do you do with it? Again, most people know the piece and it is simple to play, and we are in a place where our great skill is not going to serve us very much, because there is nothing very much that you can do with a piece. So the task that we are not used to is to actually renounce trying to impose too much onto the piece. And we've got to really come down to its level, not trying to do something absolutely sublime, not trying to be original and trying to reinvent the wheel, if you want. Some people would go for well, it's quite clearly not the intention. It doesn't serve the piece well. I think you've got to accept that you are doing as little as possible. You are playing a simple piece in a simple way. Now, the fugue, on the other hand, is a different matter. It always slightly puzzled me that Bach would have chosen as the opening fugue for the Well Tempered Clavier such a complicated, compact, condensed piece of music. It is in some ways the opposite of the prelude, and there are pairs of opposites in the prelude and fugues, like there are in marriages. And in some ways the complexity of the fugue is a good balance for the simplicity of the prelude. You may see it that way. It does remain that that fugue is not generally well known, and I would even say not generally well loved. It is dense. It's actually quite short. It's probably less than 2 minutes. And the subject of the fugue, which I will play, comes an astonishing 21 times, which is a lot for such a short piece. There are practically no episodes. That means that you will never spend much more than 3 seconds without the subject being at one of the 4 parts. It's a 4-part fugue. That means there is absolutely no point as an interpreter trying to highlight the subject, which is a popular way of playing Bach on the piano. Historically, you don't have much basis for doing it because, of course, the harpsichord cannot do that. So if I was to, for example, mark the entry of the 4th voice, then I would have to mark this one, and then this one, and it becomes counterproductive because, again, the subject is always there sometimes, and it usually overlaps. So you have one in one voice, and then very shortly after, another one starts again in one voice. So you are better not trying to highlight it. You don't need to. The subject is really part of the DNA of the piece. It is there. You know it is there, but you don't have to be pointing it out. There is one more thing I want to say about that piece, and it is slightly speculative, although I am not responsible for this piece of speculation. It is possible, and I will not pronounce myself as to whether this is true or simply a coincidence, that Bach in some way signed his piece by the use of numerology. It appears that we do have some evidence Bach was interested in numerology. Now, I did mention that the subject came 21 times. Well, he happened to be born on the 21st of March. That, again, can be coincidental. There is something else. The subject has 14 notes to it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14. Now Bach, B-A-C-H, if you decompose it, is 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 6, I think H, A, B, C, D, E, whatever. It gives you a grand total of 14 if you add the letters of Bach's name. 8, therefore, for H. So the analogy between the number of notes in the subject and this piece of numerological trick to make a 14 out of his name has led some commentators to say that Bach perhaps wanted to sign off the piece in this way. I really don't know whether it's true or not, but it's interesting at the very least.